Hi guys, I'm very glad you're here. For those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. Gena alone, your favorite family chiropractor, and we're going to talk about a lot of things today that I promise you already know. It's just sometimes we're waiting for Monday or January 1st to make some changes, but I'm giving you permission that today could be the day that you actually move forward and make a change to move yourself in a healthier, more positive direction. Because everything we do is either moving us towards a better, healthier version of ourselves, or every choice we make is moving us farther away from that. So I want you guys to finish this sentence for me. Ready? I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to what? What do you think? What do I need to do? There's 5 things we're looking for. Go for it. What do we do to be healthier?
Eat better.
Eat better, yeah.
Exercise.
There's no wrong answers. Eat better, exercise, what else?
Come to you.
Come here, okay, we'll talk about that. I like that one. We'll talk about that. What do you do every night? Sleep, right? And we said there's 5. Anything else we could think of?
Drink a lot of water.
Water, yes. What else? Anything else? What do we have to do to be healthier?
Stress.
Stress more?
No,
stress
stress
less. Have less stress. And those of you at home, I want you to think about what things you would add to the list of how to be healthier. So let's talk about them. So we call these the 5 pillars of health, or the 5 key foundational components when it comes to being your best self. And like I said before, you know these things already. It's just sometimes we need a little reminder of how to implement them into our day-to-day life, right? So you guys said eat better. We'll call that category proper nutrition. So here's the hack when it comes to food. If it lived, walked, or grew, it's probably good for you. If the item sat on a shelf for most of its life, even if it's gluten-free, organic, and all that stuff, it's not going to be your best choice, right? We want to fuel our bodies with food, and we want to have as little inflammation when it comes to food as possible. Now, each of these topics we can do an entire workshop on, right? We could spend an hour talking about nutrition. We're not going to do that. I want all of you today to leave here with implementable things that you could put into play that's going to move you 10% in a healthier direction. So, would you be willing to make a change that would be 10% in a healthier direction? 10%? It's doable for pretty much everybody, right? Now, if I asked you 100%, you'd be like, I'm out. Well, at least I would. I'm not willing to commit to 100%, but 10%. Because every time we make another 10% movement in a healthier direction, that becomes cumulative. So if we do that for proper nutrition, and then we add in that second pillar of health, which is adequate motion or exercise, now we've got 20%, right? 10% better with our eating, 10% better with our movement. We're at 20% already. Hey, we're doing pretty good, okay? So proper nutrition, adequate motion. So we are designed to move. We are not designed to sit at a desk all day or stare at a phone all day like this, right? Yet we do it, and then we go, well, I don't understand why my body feels the way that my body feels, because I went to the gym for 40 minutes to an hour, so I should feel great. But then you sat there's 24 hours in a day, right? How many other hours were you sitting or in improper posture that affects your body? So having full range of motion means having 100% health. And so what happens as we age, what do we see? People can't get down in a squat, or they got to hold on to things, right? We lose that mobility, so it affects our longevity. So we've got proper nutrition, adequate motion, and again, we're not designed to sit all day. So there's little hacks you could do. Like you could take a farther parking spot and then walk more. People fight over the closest spots here, especially to the gym next door. They're like fighting over the spot when they're going to exercise. So it's okay if we can laugh about it because it's really happening. But it's okay to take a farther parking spot and walk. It's okay to take a break from doing your work and get up and stretch your body and move around, because we are designed to move. We're not designed to sit all day. So proper nutrition, adequate motion, and then we said sleep. So I'm going to call that category quality rest. So, and this is for everyone listening, show of hands. Have you ever had a night of sleep and you woke up and you did not feel fully or well rested?
Almost every day.
Right? So there's a difference between going through the motions and actually reaping the benefit of what you're trying to achieve. So the hacks for when it comes to your sleep, you want the room to be cool, dark, and quiet. Right? So a lot of times some people sleep with the TV on. I'm not looking at anybody in the room or at home. But if you do, oftentimes the things that, what used to be back in the day when you slept overnight, what would happen? You got infomercials and the news, and none of it was like positive stuff going in your brain, right, into your psyche. Now it's different with TVs because you can kind of pick your programming and that'll just play all night long. But cool, dark, and quiet. So the last apartment I lived in, we had light that would shine through even with our curtains. So I would sleep with an eye mask because that light that we're being exposed to is affecting our circadian rhythm. And if we can't get into darkness, our body doesn't know to produce the right amounts of melatonin, and now we're having an issue with repairing, which is what's actually supposed to happen when we're sleeping. Or if we have negative or stress input happening and a lot of interruption, that's keeping our bodies from getting into that healing phase, which the whole point of sleep is. Because the second we close our eyes, we're not just in the deep sleep where our body's actually repairing itself. There's different phases of sleep. You've got proper nutrition, adequate motion, quality rest. And then next category, we kind of touched on this when we said stress less, but we're going to call this category positive mental attitude. So remember, all these things are umbrellas. When we talk about proper nutrition, things like staying hydrated and drinking more water falls underneath that category, right? Supplementation, vitamins, minerals, peptides, all these things, they fall under that category. Proper nutrition, adequate motion, quality rest, positive mental attitude. And so what we think about, we bring about, and what we focus on expands, right? So if we tell our brain positive input and good things, our brain doesn't know any different. It's a muscle that we can train just like anything else. So it's really important what we're speaking into our bodies for healing and our capacity to grow, develop, and heal. So we're going to work on something in this category that is really easy to do. I promise you that everybody here and everybody at home can do this as well. It's really crazy. We're going to breathe. So show of hands, raise your hand if you took at some point today a deep, mindful belly breath in. Be honest. So this is usually thank you for being honest. Thank you. This is usually the point in my day where I'm like, oh, I didn't do that yet today. So we're going to do it together. I actually did it today because I was training someone else to do it, but we're going to do it together. So what I want you to do, if your legs are crossed, go ahead and uncross the legs, set your arms down. I'm going to ask you to sit up nicely in your chair, whether you're at home or here. And what you're going to do is breathe. Now, during this breathing exercise, I want you to pay attention to what happens when you breathe. So we're going to be keeping one hand on our chest and one hand on our belly. And when you breathe, I want you to pay attention to if the chest hand moves first or if the belly hand moves first. And I'm going to slow our breath down as well. So I'm going to have you go ahead and close your eyes. We're going to take a deep breath in. Here we go. We're going to breathe in. And then we're going to slowly breathe out. And again, we're going to slowly breathe in. And we're going to slowly breathe out. And last time, pay attention to those movements. We're going to slowly breathe in. And we're going to breathe out. Perfect. So you guys can open your eyes and you can lower your hands. And the first thing I want you to notice is that when it comes to your breath, changing your breath is enough to change your energy and calm your mood, right? Like everybody was kind of like a little more relaxed when we did that. Now, show of hands, raise your hand if your chest hand moved first. Okay? Anybody belly hand move first? No wrong answers. So we're going to talk about what each of that means, okay? So we've got two different pieces of our nervous system. Our nervous system is our brain and our spinal cord and how it communicates with the rest of our body. It's our control center for everything. And there's two pieces to it. You've got your sympathetic, fight or flight, and you've got your parasympathetic, feed and breathe part. Both are really important. We need both. But we need to use both or want to pull on both during different times or different needs. So fight or flight, sympathetic, what's going to happen is, let's say a bear were to walk in here. We would have to decide right away if we're going to fight that bear or flight from that bear, fight or flight, okay? Survival. So when that happens, my pupils are going to dilate to take in more light. My blood's going to leave my belly because it doesn't care about what I ate for breakfast and go to my extremities to prepare to fight or flight. And I'm going to chest breathe, okay? Versus parasympathetic, feed and breathe, rest and digest. This is where I want my body to digest what I ate for lunch because I'm just sitting here doing nothing and relaxing. This is where healing happens. And this is where I'm going to take a nice deep belly breath in. Okay? Now, if you look at babies, what do you see? A big fat Buddha belly just moving on them in and out, right? They're not like, right? We learn that from stresses over life, and we're going to talk about that over time. So if you raise your hand for chest breathing and not belly breathing and you need help learning how to switch that, there's an exercise I could show you after to train your body how to do that. But when you're at rest, we want to pull on that deep belly breath, parasympathetic breathing, okay? So we've got proper nutrition, adequate motion, quality rest, positive mental attitude, and then my favorite, which you actually did say, was properly functioning nervous system. That's where chiropractic comes in, right? Come see me. Why? What do we do as chiropractors? So properly functioning nervous system. Why is that one of your 5 foundational components when it comes to your health? Well, because your nervous system is your control center for everything that happens in your body, health related or not. So, borrow my friend here for that. So when it comes to your nervous system, here's a spine. You've got your brain up top here, and that's going to send signals down your spinal cord and then out these yellow things here, which are your nerves. Those nerves don't just cut off here. They go to every organ, tissue, cell, and part of your body. So if I want to move my fingers, my brain has to send a signal down my spinal cord and out those nerves to my fingers to say move, and then it has to send a signal back to the brain in an instant that the job's getting done. Why? Because if I touch a hot stove, I don't have time for there to be a delay in that signal processing, right? I need to know that's hot immediately, and my nervous system is the thing that controls all of that, right? So, properly functioning nervous system. So we get these things, we get interference in our system called subluxations. And what causes subluxation, like you mentioned before, is stress. So we've got 3 types of stresses in our life: chemical, physical, emotional. And now in 2026, we've also got electromagnetic, because we're just surrounded by devices all day long. They all play roles on our body functions. But we're going to talk about those first 3, chemical, physical, and emotional, okay? So physical, these are things like your falls, your accidents, your injuries. So you've got big macro traumas, like a fall or an accident, or where a lot of people think like, hey, even if I'm not having pain, like my alignment might be off, like something may not be right. I'm going to go see a chiropractor. I'm going to go have an evaluation, even though I may not be symptomatic, right? That makes sense to us. That's a macro trauma. But we also have these things called micro traumas, which are small repetitive stresses that can have just as big of an impact as a macro trauma. And they're things that we're doing daily all the time. So if I were to take, I'll use the example of kids, right? If you ever drive by a bus stop in the morning and you look at kids and their backpacks, unless I'm the only weirdo here that does that because I'm a chiropractor, but a lot of times what you'll see, I'm 5'9", okay? So I have this backpack set on the lowest setting, so you'll see that there's a big space here and the backpack's low. Now my son, who's about to be 6, is about this tall on me. So if he wears this same backpack, it's on this same setting, it's gonna be almost to his ankles. So when you're wearing a backpack, what you want to do is you want to pull the straps when it's on so that they're as taut as possible. So the back should actually be like this. So you're having more support on your back. You're not hurting yourself. Because what happens is when you add weight into that, it also plays a big role on affecting how that back feels. And day to day, not a big deal. Week to week, not a big deal. Month to month, and year to year, we've got a big problem. And then they just pull this up to release it, to take it off. Same thing with cell phones. I'm going to borrow this one. Right? No one here is guilty of this, but what do? We get into this position. We're not supposed to be in this position, putting all this stress, tension, and pressure on our neurology and our surrounding musculoskeletal system, right? So it's also weird if you walk around like this, because then people think you're filming them. If you're like looking at your text like this, you got to be mindful of that. But you want to be mindful of what your posture looks like when you're doing these things, because most people are at a computer. They're at a screen all day long, right? And so then they're in that laptop position. So you'll notice all the screens in our office are propped up on stands because you want to try to keep the screen eye level. So even if you're using a laptop, try to prop it up, and you can get an external keyboard so that you're not stuck in that position, because you do this for hours. We have a big problem. So ladies do this a lot with purses. I was looking to see the purses in the room. I'm going to borrow this one. So you guys brought cute little small purses tonight, so this doesn't really do my example well, but I can carry a purse like this and I can still maintain good posture, okay? Now, usually I have someone in the group that's got like a giant purse and it's a one-side strap and they've got it like this, right? And so what happens is, in order for me to keep the purse up, I have to have an imbalance here, right? No matter what I do. And so we're creatures of habit. So if I wear my purse always on my left side, which I do when I carry a purse, I never put it on my right. That feels weird. I'm a creature of habit. I don't do that. It's always on my left. And so what happens is I create a postural abnormality. Again, day to day, not a big deal. Week to week, not a big deal. Month to month, maybe not a big deal. But year to year, we've got a problem. And men do it with wallets. They usually have their wallet in a back pocket, right? 9 times out of 10, it's the same back pocket. The wallets sometimes are thin, but sometimes they're pretty thick. And so what happens is they go to sit and they're doing this to their pelvis all day long. And then they get in the car and they sit, and the car there's vibration. So now our proprioceptors, which are how our brain recognizes how we exist in time and space, is being told that this is normal input, and it's not. So day to day, not a big deal. Week to week, not a big deal. Month to month, not such a big deal. But year to year, we've got a big problem. So much so that sometimes we'll see male new patients coming in, we'll see men coming in, and they've got like a worn out square in their jean pocket. Because from the time you're 14, 15, 16, you start carrying a wallet, and now they show up 56, 66 plus, and it's the same side year after year, and they go, "Doc, I sneezed and I threw my back out." Guys, if all we had to do was sneeze and throw our back out, we'd be seeing babies throwing their back out left and right, because Lord knows that they sneeze a heck of a lot more than we do, right? So it's not that the sneeze or bending to pick something up that caused the problem. It's these years of repetitive physical stresses that the body's been under, creating an improper imbalance, a malalignment in there, creating so much stress and tension on the nervous system that all you have to do is sneeze or pick something up, and it's enough to throw the whole system off. So this is why the choices we make regularly become so important. So that's physical stress. Well, then we have chemical stress. These are foods we eat, things we drink, drugs, both prescription and not, right? So we talked about like how to make better choices with those other things. So here's why it becomes so important to make good choices, because a lot of the things we can control, right? I can control what food I put in my body. I can control, how I'm gonna carry my purse. I can control XYZ things, right? But I can't control all of it. Because let's say they sprayed for pesticides outside today. One, I probably don't know, and two, I can't not breathe, right? So I'm gonna have exposure to certain things on some level. This is why it becomes so much more important that we're making good choices. We're making a 10% better choice when it comes to proper nutrition, adequate motion, quality rest, positive mental attitude, and properly functioning nervous system, because we're being exposed whether we know it or not. So those are our chemical stresses. And then we have emotional stress, finances, relationships, deadlines. Look, some of these stresses is eustress, not distress. Like, it's good to have a deadline, right? Because it pushes us to get the job done, right? Otherwise we'd be like, well, whatever. But too much of these emotional stresses add up on the system too. And all of that gets processed through your nervous system, right? Like, how does having a bad day affect your body? Well, there's a huge emotional component to stress and how it shows up as physical manifestations of symptoms and problems in the body. So let's go back for a minute to our example here. And we talked about how chemical stress, physical stress, and emotional stress interfere with this pathway of neurological input. So what happens is when I touch that stove, like we talked about, the nerves send a signal up to my brain. My brain responds in an instant to send good information back that says, hey, move your hand and do it quickly, right? And then shake it out and find a way to put aloe or run it under cold water. Now, when there's less stress, the system does that clearly. But when there's more stress, there's now interference and there's tension in that system. So now instead of the signals coming through clearly like this, when we have more stress, the signals come through like this. Now this can show up as physical symptoms, right? Like headaches, neck pain, sciatica, right? This can show up as physical symptoms also from a functional standpoint. Because check this one out, you ready? Less than 20% of your nerve fibers transmit pain. Less than 20%. Out of 100%, less than 20 has to do with pain. Yet most of us will base our health solely on how we feel. That only works 20% of the time. That means 80+% has to do with how your body functions. Digestion, going to the bathroom regularly, sleep, being able to get into that deep reparative sleep, thinking clearly, right? Feeling anxious, functional things that our body's doing, how we move. And so this is why when people start going to the chiropractor, they go, well, I came because of pain, but then I noticed that my sleep is better, and I treat my kids better, and I have better relationships, and they name all these other things that they go, I didn't even know chiropractic could help with that. So when we have interference, here's how this all works. When we have interference to the system, so how does, we talked about chemical, physical, and emotional stress, like what happens? So there's mine. When we have a subluxation, interference, or malalignment, there's pressure on the nerve. Now that signal comes through like this instead of like this. And now, so for example, the nerves here are the ones that go to the heart. Kind of important, whether you have a physical symptom of that or not. I'm gonna assume, and stop me if I'm wrong here, correct me if I'm wrong, but that you're always gonna want the signal from your brain to your heart to fire as clearly as possible, yeah? I made an assumption, I was good on that one, right? So this is why when you come to the chiropractor, we're not just assessing an area that has pain. We're assessing where is the brain receiving or not receiving good information. Because the areas where it's getting misinformation, or the areas where it's getting malinformation or has tension, it's not going to give good output back to the body. And guess what? Your body's designed to heal itself. And it can only do that in relation to the choices we make. So the less chemical, physical, and emotional stress we expose the body to, the better our body's ability to have less subluxation and to function at its best. So here's how this works. So if I'm doing proper nutrition, I'm eating all the right foods, I'm getting adequate motion, I'm moving my body, I'm getting quality deep sleep to repair, and I'm thinking the good thoughts, but I have subluxations, I have interference in that neurology, it doesn't matter how many vitamins I take and all those things. The nerves from here go to the large intestine. So this is how the brain signals for me to poop every day, right? Because if you're eating every day, you should be excreting every day, not if there's too much stress to the system. And so what happens is now, even though you're eating, there's a malinformation going through, there's a disconnect somewhere, and so your body goes, oh, I'm just not gonna poop. I'm gonna poop maybe once a week or once every 3 days and tell you that's normal as you keep eating, and you're just gonna start feeling really bad. And then eventually it's gonna show up as low back pain or XYZ other symptom in here where you go, well, maybe something else is wrong, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So why do people go to the chiropractor? Because we're going here to find those areas where you have that interference in the neurology, and we're gonna boop, gently adjust that. We're gonna remove that interference so your body does what it's designed to do. We're restoring that flow of information from the brain down to the body and from the body back up to the brain. And the more clearly that cycle functions, the more clearly that cycle communicates, the better your body functions, 100% of the time. So let's use the example of Thanksgiving. And we're in the kitchen and we're cooking. Not me, because I don't cook, but you're with me. Play along. My sister's in the kitchen cooking. And so the TV's on because you're watching the parade in the morning, and the blender's on because you're mixing something in there, and the microwave's on because you're warming something up, and you go to plug one more thing in, and boom, power goes out. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
A good thing.
Good thing.
A good thing.
Okay? So you know that most of the times when I have this talk, people say it's a bad thing, and there's no wrong answer, so we talk about that, and we're like, well, yeah, it's a bad thing because your family's coming and the dinner's not ready, blah, blah, blah. But you guys are smarter than most, so you said it's a good thing. Why?
Because it's
Because
letting us know
that something's wrong.
something's
Right.
wrong, so let me just shut that all out
Yes.
before fire comes on.
Yes. So it's actually a self-protective mechanism. So what happens is we've got a lot of power flowing through, but there's such a thing as system overload. The system can only handle so much, right? So if we get to that point of max capacity, as a default mechanism, the system's designed to shut itself down, because if it doesn't, let's say we plug that one last thing in or turn that one more thing on, which overloads the system, we can have an explosion or a fire. So like then we've got a really big problem. So the system is designed to self-protect. It shuts that down, and we go, because your sister's home and she's straightening her hair upstairs, she's got power. So in that instance where the power goes out, what do we just change the light bulb in the kitchen? No, that doesn't do anything for us. Where do we go? We've got to go to the fuse box, we've got to go to the source and restore the power. Look, FPL is still sending power to your house in Florida, right? And FPL's sending power to your fuse box, but there's a trip somewhere. That fuse box can't get the information to the kitchen. Now it's getting the information to another part of the house. This is exactly how your body works. We got to go to the fuse box, flip the switch, and restore that flow. And we say, ooh, maybe I'm gonna do one less thing. We're not like, let me stop everything, but let me do one less thing. I'm gonna push it as much to the max as I can, and I'm only speaking from my own personal experience, but I think it's safe to assume we all do this. And then we keep going. This is exactly how our body responds. And this, guys, is our fuse box. Okay, so every time you come in, we're checking this fuse box. We're looking to see if anything's tripped a breaker, tripped a switch. And so here's how it looks in live time. So we talked about chemical, physical, and emotional stress interfering with that neurology, right? So let's say we're on our way driving and someone cut us off on the highway, and that is an emotional stress because we're like, oh my God, like, did you see that crazy person coming off on 95, which never happens here? and then we tripped going into work, so that's a physical stress. And then your spouse pissed you off that morning, so you got another emotional stress. And then you accidentally ate a pint of Ben and Jerry's, which always happens, right? That's a chemical stress. And then your body goes, you know what? I'm just gonna shut that down. I'm gonna create a subluxation. I'm gonna create interference, which may or may not have a symptom, because less than 20% of nerve signals carry pain. So I may not even know this is going on. I may not be symptomatic. I could be 80% functional that I don't even recognize is happening. And so what do we do when you come to the chiropractor's office? We're assessing to see, do you have any of these areas of interference as a result of chemical, physical, and emotional stress affecting how the brain and the body are communicating? And if you do, boop, just like you go to the breaker switch in your house, you go to the breaker switch here. And then we remind you, hey, make good choices, meaning make less chemical, physical, and emotional stress exposure as much as you can on a day-to-day basis, so that we restore the flow from the brain down, from above down, and from the inside out. Notice I didn't say from the outside in, because we're always quick to grab something, or let me take this or do this to make it better, when all we have to do is actually the opposite, remove the interference and just make better choices. Because if you remember anything from this talk, the thing to remember is that your body is designed to heal itself. Your body has the capacity to heal itself, and it will do that to the degree of which the choices you make are in your life. So pretty cool, right? So let's talk about Maria. So Maria was a patient, or Christina, who should I share today?
Maria.
Maria, okay. So Maria was a patient that came to see me. This is years ago. I'm in practice close to 18 years now. It'll be 18 this year. This is when I was first in practice, right? And I had this woman come in. She's like, Doc, I'm in so much pain. You gotta help me, right? She's coming in with back pain, and we're like, okay. We're thinking it's mechanical low back pain. I see this all day long as a chiropractor, no surprise. And so she comes in and she's like, my back's killing me. You gotta help me, okay? And I say, great, let's get started, okay? So we started seeing Maria. I think it was after 3 visits. We were adjusting her. We're removing that interference, and we're removing that interference in the neural. It's okay. There's actually people here live at the event, in case you're wondering. We're not just filming this for fun, and their phones went off. All good. It's all life happens, right?
It's that time of day.
So, so she's coming in because this low back pain that she has, and so we start working with her. And I think it was after 3 visits that Maria goes, Doc, I gotta ask you a question. And I said, sure, Maria, what's up? She's like, she's like, I'm going to the bathroom. And I said, okay. She's like, no, I'm going a lot. And I was like, okay. She's like, I'm going a lot. I was like, Maria, number 1 or number 2? And she's like, number 2. I was like, well, how much, like, how often are you going? She's like, I'm going every day. And I'm like, Maria, you're supposed to go every day. I was like, how often were you going? And she was like, I was going once a week. And she goes, so I'm like, okay. And she's like, and look at this. She's like, I lost all this weight. She goes, I didn't know chiropractic was for weight loss. And I'm like, well, neither did I. But so here's and this is a true story, okay? Here's the thing that happened in Maria's case. Maria was a nurse. She was working with like great doctors, and everyone's treating Maria's constipation. She's not pooping. She's going to the bathroom once a week, and she's taking all this fiber and Metamucil and this, that, and the other, and she's still not pooping. And now she's also feeling bad, but now she has low back pain. And the reason why she has that is because she has so much chemical, physical, and emotional stress interference to the system. When what she really had was a subluxation or nerve interference to the nerves that are going to the large intestine, which is the organ responsible for you to poop every day. So the brain was misfiring. It couldn't get the signal through because the signal was subluxated. She needed breaker switch, fuse box, adjustment. So we started adjusting her. That signal fires better. Her body does what it's designed to do, which is if you eat every day, you excrete every day. She starts going to the bathroom. She lost weight. It was toxicity. It was toxins in her body. She literally was full of you know what, right? And it didn't matter how much fiber she added or what other things she did. It wasn't outside in, it was inside out. And so these are the kinds of things we see with chiropractic. So we understand that chemical, physical, and emotional stress affect us. Knowing that, at what age could someone have this interference? When do we get first exposed to stress?
Anytime.
So like what age?
I think even a baby can have stress.
Right?
Doesn't matter, yeah.
Well, babies don't have bills. Can they have stress?
Doesn't matter. It's a type of an emotional. I would say it would be an emotional
Sure.
stress. Yeah.
Sometimes it could be chemical too, right? And it could be
The
physical.
wrong food.
So they have the same exposures that we have. And guess what? You know what the most stressful process is? Birth. Mm-hmm. Even an uncomplicated natural vaginal birth, there's pulling and pushing. What comes out first, guys? The head. So if the alignment's off even a little bit, now check it out. We have in our office, we have extra training in pregnancy and pediatrics. So when you come in, you'll see a lot of bellies and a lot of babies here. It's not an accident. It's on purpose because their parents understand that yes, sometimes we're symptomatic, and we'll touch on that, but most of the time it's a functional issue that's not yet showing up as a symptom. Remember, less than 20% of the nerve fibers carry pain. So they're not coming in because of sciatica at 2 weeks old, but their parents understand that they just went through this really stressful process called birth, even uncomplicated natural vaginal, and they said, let me have a checkup to make sure neurologically that my baby is as best as they could be, because babies grow and develop tenfold neurologically, 100-fold to what we do on a daily basis. And so when we adjust babies, it's pressures. It's no more pressure than you use when you check how ripe a piece of fruit is. That's the amount of pressure. And so parents go, that's it? Yes, that's enough to correct a neurospinal issue. I want you to think about how much more force happens in that uncomplicated natural vaginal birth. And then we talk about the head comes out first. So even if that alignment's off just a little bit, now it's affecting brainstem, which is the control center of everything that happens in the body. And that's where all the cranial nerves are: eyes, ears, nose, throat, face. And so this is why when babies are having things like latching issues or colic and reflux, or we start seeing kids with frequent ear infections and constipation, these are all cases that we work with here in the office without adding medication and other things to the body, but removing interference so their bodies grow and develop and function the best the way that they're meant to. And this is why chiropractic, so sometimes people come in the beginning and they need more work to have a full assessment, evaluation, and repetition to undo the days, years, or months of chemical, physical, and emotional stress exposure they've had. But then once we correct that, we help them get there, then we maintain it. It's like when you have the braces, you got to do all the stuff and all the checkups and all of this, but once the braces come off, you still got to wear the retainer, right? So this is exactly how chiropractic works. So I want to thank you all for being here tonight. So I'll take my round of applause now. Thank you. And for those of you watching at home, if you have friends or family members, and to people in the room too, if you have friends or family members that you're like, hey, how does someone know if they have a subluxation? Like, how do we know if this is going on in my body? Well, they come here for an assessment. So if we're working with babies or pregnant women, we're doing neuroscans. So we have ways to measure neurologically, like what the stress pattern is. And then for a lot of our new patients, we do digital x-ray right here in the office, right? Because we don't want to guess when it comes to your health. We want to actually see what's going on. And what we do different than most is something called a 4-view motion study x-ray. So we don't just look from the front and the side view, you actually move when we take the images, so we can see what's moving and not moving, what's working and not working, where specifically those problems are coming from. And then we help you come up with a game plan of how do we actually correct it, because we're very much results driven. And so a lot of times for people, that initial visit, the thing that they're apprehensive about is time and cost, right? And so we eliminate that. So if you're watching this at home, or if you're in the room and you want to send a family member in, just call our office if you're at home, and let the team know that you just watched this video there, and we have a special for you to be able to send your friends or family member in at a severely discounted rate with zero pressure for them to sign up or do anything, but just for them to receive information. Because the thing is, we're on a mission to see our community be healthier and say yes to chiropractic, so they're more likely to say no to drugs and surgery. And to do that, we know that people need to understand what's really happening from their bodies and not just chasing symptoms and waiting for that 20% of the nerve fiber problem, but being proactive and looking at this from that 80% functionality standpoint. And that's exactly what we do in the office. So for those of you watching, just call us and let us know that you're interested in that, and we'd be happy to set that up for you.